Didn't William Branham say somewhere that the American government was building prison camps in Alaska to put message believers in? Do you know if he said that? And if he did, could you please add it to the list of topics that you could talk about?
That's a really interesting statement of William Branham there. And yes, he did say on tape several times that people were going to be put into basically a concentration camp type gulag in Alaska if they did not submit to the World Council of Churches. And this is something that he said it a number of times. And the World Council of Churches was a boogeyman that William Branham used. Basically, he set that up that would be the image of the beast, and then every denomination that joined the World Council of Churches was going to be worshiping the image of the beast, which is like taking the mark of the beast, and, you're going to burn up and go to hell, basically. So if you didn't submit to the World Council of Churches, you're going to, then the alternative is they're going to send you to Alaska and put you in a gulag prison camp. And let me read you a quote of William Branham to this effect. This is from a 1962 sermon. He says, he's telling a story here about someone that's going to end up in the gulag. He says, "The father stood up and said, 'It's against our religious belief for our children to wear shorts, our little girls, 16, 17 years old, to wear shorts. It's against our religious beliefs.' And they dismissed it, and they expelled the child from school. And I understand that everybody that won't agree and come into the international agreement of this fellowship that they're trying to form to unite all the churches together, the Federation of Churches, that all that won't come in and unite with it, they'll make a little province. They're going to send them to Alaska. You might as well get ready for cold weather, because it sure looks like it's coming." So that's what William Branham said about all the people who don't submit to the World Council of Churches going to Alaska. You find other quotes like that, but honestly, John, that is just a nutso conspiracy theory. I don't believe the World Council of Churches ever really had a plan to exile all of the people who did not submit to them to a gulag in Alaska. I don't think that's true.
No, it's not. And I've mentioned before, I think in the last series, but we're getting into, hopefully in the future, we're getting into some interesting history, American religious history, about the invasion of the communist scare and how it impacted the religion. And through fundamentalism, they basically took all of these different world conspiracy theories, embedded it into American Christianity, and then built entire mountains of doctrine on top of it. And at its core, it was just simply false. So William Branham said this. Now, if you go to a message cult church today, it's highly unlikely you're going to hear it. I'm certain that the person asking this is probably as old as me or older, because it's something that used to be taught. They have whitewashed a lot of their history. To some extent, they've tried to change it from an atmosphere of fear to I don't know what you'd call it. It's not the gospel. It's an atmosphere of burden. That's how I'll call it. They changed it from an atmosphere of fear of hyper fear to an atmosphere of fear combined with burden. That's probably the easiest way to explain it. And my family, I have a family member who mentioned that every day as this person was getting ready to go to school, they would get on the bus, and as they were walking to the bus with their parents, they would turn and just grab onto the leg and cry and cry and cry. I mean, even to an age that it's embarrassing to be like this, because they were afraid that they would get on the bus and go to school when all of this would happen, and that their parents would be sent to the prison camps while they were in school, and they would never reunite with the parents. That's the level of fear that our parents, my parents, grew up with. That's, the generation of people that I'm talking about are the age of my parents. So this is something that used to be widespread. You're not going to hear it much in the cult today because they try to whitewash their history, as we've mentioned. But this is problematic. This is a gospel of fear, not a gospel of love.
Yeah, it's crazy how this stuff has evolved over the years. And you're right, the talk about World Council of Churches being the image of the beast is something that I think gradually may have died out in a lot of places. I know in our churches it was still mentioned occasionally, but I want to say after the 90s, as you come into the early 2000s, it seems like, at least where I come from, it is an idea that's kind of faded away. Even though I will say William Branham included that in his interpretation of the fifth seal. So that is actually, thus saith the Lord from the angel, that the World Council of Churches is the image of the beast. So I don't think the message really can completely divorce itself from that idea without actually rejecting the revelation of the seals. So, yeah, but at the end of the day, it's just crazy conspiracy stuff. I know they would always say, and William Branham said too, that the World Council of Churches was a secretly communist institution, which I think there might actually be some truth to it, that they were influenced by communism, but ultimately with him, that means, communism was controlled by the Jews, and then it's all part of the deal with making a deal with the Pope to everything else, which all that is just bizarre nonsense. There's maybe elements of truth there that they grab at, and then pile on with the crazy conspiracy stuff. Something else.